Hello everyone, it is a new day, new shirt, new opportunity to try and fix some of the stuff that was left over in the past video. So in the last couple of videos, if you haven't noticed, we've been building out an Active Directory home lab environment. We have a domain controller set up with Windows Server 2022 installed, created an XYZ domain, and we have a workstation, just a Windows 11 installed that we've been building out alongside a management client that we're using to write some code in PowerShell with a JSON configurable file where we can specify Active Directory users and groups that we want to be able to have in our domain so we can eventually do some cool lead hacking cybersecurity stuff in an Active Directory environment. But I have realized whenever I try to join a new workstation to the domain, or at least log in with one of the domain accounts that I've created after being joined to the domain, I've already rolled back the domain controller to now create the new users and groups. And I think, bear with me on this because I could totally be wrong. Maybe just reverting a domain controller and having other workstations join the domain just muffs everything up. Maybe I just don't know yet. I hope we can explore and dive in on this video. But I think, and this is a hunch, if I can set the snapshot of the domain controller to after my workstation has joined the domain, when I roll it back, maybe I won't lose that availability and option to be able to log in with the domain users that I create here and there. So let's try that and let's fix some of the PowerShell code that we did in the previous video. Super long intro, I'm sorry. Now let's dive in. All right, I'm gonna hop over to my computer screen and you can see I have my DC1 virtual machine set here for us and my workstation 01 just as well. We also have our management client, just another Windows 11 install that we've been using to write PowerShell code, work with our GitHub environment, and then, kind of decorate our DC as needed. But I want to set a clean slate for us. So I'm going to revert this domain controller back to our fresh XYZ domain setup. And I guess we can also turn this workstation 1 on. I think the only snapshot we have for him is after we've joined to the domain. So we're going to have to disjoin and remove ourselves from the domain and then get back in it, and then hopefully have a snapshot for the DC following that. But we need to make some other changes to our management client script. So we'll go back over here and let's open up our terminal, which we have been using to write some PowerShell code and play with our Active Directory environment in JSON. So I believe we could just move into our Active Directory repository that we've made here, and this is up on Git. I've been trying to encourage and recommend folks actually, hey, fire this thing up in a GitHub repository so you can keep track of your notes and your code and everything that you do. You know what I mean? But if you don't remember, we went ahead and wrote some code that will generate this Active Directory environment, but we also were trying to figure out how we could remove things in case we wanted to work backwards or revert some of the changes that we'd made. Obviously, doing our snapshot does this for us, but we also might, I don't know, if the snapshot is kind of being a pain, we lose a little bit of that capability. Maybe. We're still exploring. This is definitely a discovery-based series here. One function that we've written, though, is actually going to weaken the password policy by using secedit, one of the old utilities, and exporting the current configuration of this policy. I'm assuming security policy. And then PowerShell will actually retrieve the contents of this and replace password complexity being 1 set to password complexity being 0. That way we turn off enforcing the password complexity. However, there is another option that actually is going to configure and actually notice when we've explored with this thing. You might remember we set this up and actually take a look at it previously in our own management environment. If I open up what this security policy has set, yep, I totally remote. No, don't worry about it. We have a minimum password length. Currently, this is set to 0 and all these other things. I'm assuming this is because of it's just a regular Windows 11 install. If I did this on the domain controller, that might be worthwhile to check out. So let's hop back over there and let's set the stage here. I'm going to send to Control-Delete, enter the password credentials that we know we have set in the past. There we go. And now let's run that very same command to export the security policy once we are logged in here. We should be able to then see, opening that thing up or just cutting it out, we'll be able to see it is forcing a minimum password length. Well, we've been using some kind of cheesy Dumbo. Oh, I don't have it in my clipboard anymore. That's a pain. Can I go grab that command here? Copy. Paste. All right, cool. So now we can type in, actually display that out on the screen, or cat it out here. Now, we've been doing this and set on actually trying to create a vulnerable Active Directory environment, correct? So using weak passwords is something that we have been playing with. I want to be able to first showcase some Bloodhound or some crack map exec, just get a lay of the land and kind of survey the scenes for what our Active Directory environment and domain looks like. And to start with that, I want to have weak passwords because we can brute force, we can curb root, we can do whatever we'd like. So please bear with me. That is why we are enforcing the weak passwords. I realize, it's not really realistic yet, but we're getting there. Gotta crawl before we can walk and walk before we can run. Anyway, you can see here, okay, we have a minimum password length. So that's why you might have seen in the previous video, something that we saw like a password ABC123 wasn't allowed. So let's change that up just as well in our script. We're using just a simple replace function, so we can do that exact same thing. Replace it one more time. I'm just going to paste that right here, and we change, minimum password length, which was originally, it said 7, correct? Let's bring that down to 1. Yeah? And I want to verify I have the correct field name there. It is minimum password length, set to 7. Okay, cool. Password complexity is 1. We haven't actually ran our script on this yet, so that should hopefully behave now. But as I mentioned, we've been wanting to go ahead and build this and also create an undo stuff. So we can, I guess, probably say strengthen password policy. If we recreate this function, we'll export it, and as we did previously, just kind of flip-flop what we are doing when we are disabling password complexity, and in this case, enabling it or turning it right back on, correct? Minimum length would have been 1 after we changed it, but let's put it back to 7. You know what I mean? Okay, with that, we have that function set for us. We also have a remove Active Directory group that we set up. It'd be good to remove an Active Directory user. That should be pretty easy. The same way that we add AD group member on a new AD user, I believe we can just remove AD user, right? Let's Google that just to make sure. Remove AD user PowerShell. Yeah, remove AD user. That's all it takes. You can specify the SAM account name or the identity parameter. Oh, I suppose actually identity will use the SAM account name. So let's just churn that out, right? Here, let's remove AD user, and then we'll say user object. We know that we're going to grab the name out of it, which in fact we are getting just their first name though, aren't we? So we probably need to split that up just the same way that we've been doing in the past. In the original create function, but the SAM account name is really all that we need because that's what we passed to remove AD user. Let's cut that up. We split on spaces so that we have a first name and last name, and then we grab the first name first initial, and then the full last name in lowercase. And then we go ahead and remove the SAM account name, just like that. Now, it would be good for me to be able to actually, run this. I will build that out momentarily if or when we need it. I think for the moment, I still want to test our domain setting, but we've got this here for us, and we can push this code and do whatever we need to. What I want to do, as I mentioned, was build this out on the domain controller, and then I suppose, honestly, we've reverted this to the very beginning of the fresh domain setup, and we can remove our security policy that we spat out there. RM, alias in PowerShell to del, or delete item. And now our workstation 1, we could log in with another user, but let's log in with the local admin and make sure to remove ourselves from the domain. So that should allow us to then rejoin to the domain and snapshot the domain controller while we have joined. Now, this is an experiment, bear in mind. This is a hypothetical. I don't know if this is going to be what works for us. We're just going to try it and find out. So let's go ahead, and we could probably use the terminal for this one, right? Because we know it's remove computer or something like that. It didn't let me open it. Oh, no, it is going to let me open it as administrator. Cool. Yeah, I don't need to open it again. How did we do that earlier? It was add computer. So we want remove computer, correct? Yes, I'm totally cool with leaving the domain. Yes. I hit A to enter all, but that didn't seem to work for us. Access is denied. That's kind of weird. That's kind of wild. Is it because we aren't already in the domain? Or is it because we need the credentials? Probably the credentials. We could go into the computer settings in front of the GUI and just try that. Yeah, we are connected to XYZ Active Directory domain. Let's go ahead and disconnect. And could I just pass in credential, get credential for that? Maybe. Because we know, oh, it was access denied. XYZ administrator, and then the password as needed. Correct? Yes, totally cool to leave it. Please work. Failed to join because there's no mapping between account names and security IDs. Okay, so is this machine just borked now? Can I just disconnect? Did I break it too far badly? Too badly? Too far gone? I don't know the words that I'm saying. After restarting, your domain won't be joined. Let's go ahead and restart now. There might have been some other command line things that I was missing there. Okay, we are back at our login prompt, and we have just local admin at this point. We are not offered to join another domain. So what I'm going to do, and I know this is probably super annoying, so forgive me, but I do want to just go check. We are not currently joined to a domain. Verify that. Good, we are not. And I'm going to shut this guy down because I want to take a snapshot while we are not yet joined to the domain. I'm sorry. That's what I'm going to do. So we'll shut down the guest. Let's just actually just do power off because we know, hey, it's being weird for us. Snapshot. So fresh install, not joined to domain. How about that? Now let's fire this thing up. And we know that we will end up wanting to create a snapshot on the domain controller after we join the domain with the workstation. This is the idea. This is the hope. Hopefully we won't be too borked or broken with new users after that. But it looks like Windows has to update, so we'll see how we do. When I come back, I'll pause the recording for a moment. Never mind. That was like immediate. Okay. Now we can go ahead and log in and join the domain and do everything that I already said we were doing. Okay. You guys know the drill at this point. I could probably speed run this. Okay, success. Let's reboot this thing or power him off. Let's take a snapshot. We'll call it second joined XYZ domain. And then we can power off our domain controller. How about that? Okay. Now I can take a snapshot. Workstation 01 joined to domain. Great. Now we can turn this guy back on. We can run our management script and have it generate a random Active Directory environment for us as we can connect to this thing. So we will go ahead and grab some credentials. I'll save that in a variable. Just saving that so this our admin machine can work at it, our management machine. Perfect. And then we need DC to be a new PS session. 192.168.111.155 is the IP address for our domain controller. We can add in credentials being our credentials. And this might take a moment because I don't know if the box is finished starting up. Nope, not yet. He's still cooking, applying computer settings. All right, so that'll come by in just a moment. Okay, that should be set. Let's go to our management client, try and run that one more time. Perfect. Now we can copy item let's move into the code directory so we have all the stuff that we need. We can copy our random domain to session DC. and C Windows tasks, I suppose, is a fine place to put it. If I can type. Let's see if that works. It does. Okay, perfect. And let's do our gen AD just as well. Great. Now let's enter that PS session. Grab the variable there. Now I'm on the domain controller from the management client. Let's move into Windows tasks. Let's get a random domain written out in an output file of schema.json, I suppose is fine. Oh, goodness gracious, we've broken something badly. What happened? We needed to... It doesn't know the files. We wanted to generate a random domain, but we're the only one on our management VM that has the data. So we should run a random domain here. And we'll call it out.json or whatever. So now we can copy that. My bad. Out.json over to it. And now we can enter it one more time. Sorry. Okay, so we don't need our schema. We don't need our random domain. We just need to be able to generate a domain with the previously generated random data. Fingers crossed. Okay. Security policy is good. No errors on passwords so far. Creating a ton of domain accounts for us. And hopefully now, at long last, can we actually access and log in with one of the users that we've created. We have Grace Edmonds with the password babygirl, Allison Sharp with the password flowers. Let's use Allison. Let's use A Sharp would be the username for us. So we'll turn on our workstation, which is joined to the domain, mind you. It's supposed to be anyway, I think. I don't even remember now, and it's all a blur, and we're not off to a good start for this recording session tonight. But we'll let this thing start up. No. That's the danger of, the power off, power on thing. Hard power press button. The hardware, if there even is such a thing, right on our virtual machines. Will it allow me, yes, to log in with another user? So we're looking for A Sharp and flowers and moment of truth. If I hit enter here, will it please let me log in? It did. Perfect. Now here's the catch. If I re-roll back the domain and then generate new users and then try to log back in again, are we going to have a hiccup in like the unsynced or unaligned workstation and domain controller machine? I don't know. So let's log out, roll this guy back to WS01 join to domain, power this fella on, and oh no, I probably broke in that terminal. Gosh, because I was still stuck in it. I'm sorry. Time to do literally everything all over again. This is gonna be such a good series, everyone. Everyone's gonna love these videos. Everyone is gonna really enjoy watching the same thing over and over again for setting up our Dumbo infrastructure. So hey, let's generate another random domain. We'll overwrite out.json. Okay. I believe out.json should now have new info. It does. Christian Ball. Sam Graham has Stephanie. Una Baker, Abigail Brown. So A Brown and Bubbles would be a good user to log in with. Now let's try to generate a new PS session with the credentials. That looks like it worked. So our machine had started back up. And let's just, hang on, I can copy item, right? Out.json and our gen AD script. Good. Now let's enter PS session DC. I'm using Control R, by the way, to be able to backwards reverse search my command history. Let's move into Windows tasks. Let's gen AD based off of our out.json, and that what? What are these errors? What? Was I just too quick? Was the domain services just not up running? I don't know. I think I'm okay. I think we're okay. Maybe I was just too quick on the trigger. So, we have now restarted, and let me bounce this workstation one last time. Can I just safely restart it? So now Alice Sharp or A Sharp doesn't exist. Now we're looking at Abigail Brown or whatever. And their user password is Bubbles. So we can log in with that. All based off the hope that we have now solved the problem that plagued us at the very, very end of the last video when we were unable to log back into the workstation with the domain user account after we reverted the domain controller. I think because the workstation and domain relationship was out of sync, because we needed to rejoin the workstation to the new domain controller. And I hope that's not extremely confusing. This is still taking a little bit of time, so I'm going to let this run, and I'll pause the video, and I want to let it gracefully restart this time. Okay, I stepped away for a moment, but it looks like it has restarted. So A Sharp is no longer an option for us. We still want to sign into the XYZ domain, but we're now going for Abigail Brown, right? A Brown, and the password is Bubbles. So this is the next moment of truth. Can we please, pretty please log in? Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you. We've solved the problem. We can now restart and have a clean slate with our domain environment whenever we'd like and still manage at least a workstation 1. We'll have to hobble and play with other servers or workstations that join the domain as needed when we build out new ones. But for the moment, we are currently A Brown. And we can open up the terminal, and this is a cool thing, if that's all right. Oh, I can't open it with an admin prompt, as you remember, because we are just a domain user. So let's open up the terminal. And while we had previously been able to run net user, right, that's fine and dandy, but it'll only show us the local accounts for this machine, workstation 01. Local admin is the admin that's been created, of course, the administrator account that might be built in, guest account, which is probably like disabled. But we can use netuser/domain, and as a domain user, see all of the other domain users that were created for us. So there was R.U. Baker that we saw. There were some others, I think Sam Graham or something. S. McGrath, who knows? S. Graham, there he is. and all of the created accounts that we had just made. So finally, I feel better about this. I suppose we can turn that guy off. And maybe we want to build out the undo scripts in our management code. That would be worthwhile, I think. Honestly, we could... Can I still have remove AD... No, AD user things that I wrote. But because we had we just slashed to run our script, so we don't have the functions in this current scope. I wanted to be able to just run some of the code that we had on some of the functions, because I didn't make convenience functions for these. But let's do it. Let's do it, honestly. Let's make a revert option. I suppose I could have an action, maybe? How can we add another parameter for this? I suppose action... Or different kinds, or deletes. Maybe that's how it needs to be. It needs to be like a bool type. Let's Google add in a boolean. Let's do it. PowerShell bool flag parameter. I totally spelled parameter wrong. It just needs to be a bool. or switch. Let's see what Stack Overflow says. We're not using bool types, you're using switch types. Switch behaves much like a Boolean, but it is not a Boolean. When determining truthiness, ultimately the value of is present is considered and not the default behavior of truthiness. When the switch value is false or not provided, it evaluates to false. If the switch value is true or is provided, it evaluates to true. So we need a switch when we want something to be actually turned on. So we could use /delete or /remove, and maybe that's what we can use. Did they show an example of that? Switch parameters of type switch parameter, which implicitly converts it to Boolean. This person gave me a link here. Okay, so param switch and then what it should be. So could we very well add in our parameters another param? How do we add those multiples? I'm dumb. I'm very sorry. They had multiple parameters. Yeah, okay, so just a comma and then another parameter following it is the syntax. Good enough? Let's get back to that. And maybe we can make that slightly more readable, I suppose. Param switch. That should just be the name of it, should it not? Mandatory equals true. And these position string pool. It should just be switch. Yeah. I think. That just needs to be the name. Does it not? Let's try it. I think. Does that need a comma at the end there? Or what's wrong with that? Let me be an idiot for a moment together with you, please. I'm very sorry. Oh, and that doesn't need to be mandatory. It just needs to be param switch as something. Yeah? Maybe? Woo. You can tell I am not a PowerShell programmer, by the way. I don't script in PowerShell all that often. Parameter mandatory true. String param 1, 2. No one else has an example here. What? Param int this thing. Oh, it doesn't need param in here. I'm a dumbo. That would be why. I'm sorry. I just... Not apparently in the mindset to record videos today, huh? Let's do an undo. What I guess can be the name of it. Or reverse. Whatever we want to call it. You can decide what you'd like. So we can say... At the very, very bottom, what we do is we weaken the security policy after we retrieve these, join the grab the domain. So if not undo, if not undo, maybe, then we will weaken the security policy and actually build this all out properly. But if it is something that we want to undo, then we do this in reverse. Really, we put the security policy back, and then we'll remove the users before we remove the groups. So we don't end up like with dangling ones. Is that fair to say? I think that's okay. Will that work? Can I do an if not just like that in PowerShell? Let's find out. Let's just open a new tab. I Control-Shift-T to open a new tab on this local machine here for us. Let's say undo can equal true. And let's say we test if tac not undo. Echo creating. Else echo reversing. Does that syntax work? It does. And that is a-okay for us. Okay, so this thing should be good. Let's copy this back to our domain controller and then try and run undo in the way that we did. We copied GenAD2 session in the Windows task just previously. Now that we can enter our session as we've done, we are now in the tasks directory on the domain controller, and we can cat out or type out our genAct directory script, which now has our updated code checking for undo. So can I run genAD with our out.json schema and then pass in tack undo? Does that work? Pretty please? Oh no. Okay, so we're running remove AD group and we cannot find an identity S Chapman under these things. What? Oh, because our AD group is still trying to remove. Ha ha ha. So we're calling the wrong thing. Where's our remove AD user? I never changed this. And you were probably screaming at me from the start. I'm sorry, everybody. It's been a rough video, as they always are, right? Let's do that one more time. Copy. Enter. genAD out.json tack undo. We've removed the groups previously, so that's why it's erroring and whining about these. But if I were to now net user / domain, we do no longer have the user accounts that we created. We also no longer have the groups that we had created previously. So we could at any point, hey, fire that back up, right? genAD without our undo, it creates them all for us. Perfect. And then those commands work. And then otherwise, when we want to remove them, they are removed. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you guys are feeling the good feels, but now when we undo this, it's all clean again. And that is this video, ladies and gentlemen. We've solved a couple of our problems. We've made our script better. We've made our script a little bit more flexible. We have fixed the password policy issues, and we have actually made it so that we can go back to a clean slate in our domain controllers and workstations and log in just fine. So my goodness, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I feel like this one was a little off the wall, different vibe, I don't know, than the other day. But hopefully we got some good stuff set up. And now we can finally explore and experiment with some cool offensive security. Hey, doing some pen testing, doing some red teaming, and trying to brute force credentials or find our way into domain users and switch the perspective rather than from building now to breaking. So I'm excited for it. I hope you are too. I hope you can join me in the next video. If you are enjoying these videos of this series, please do all those YouTube algorithm things. You know, it helps the channel grow. It lets me know that this is stuff that you do want to see. Like, comment, subscribe. If you could click the bell, that would be awesome. Get some notifications when stuff goes up. And honestly, seriously, if you aren't subscribed, pretty please do. I think there's some wild number, like over like 60%, 40%, some shocking number of people aren't subscribed that watch my videos. And honestly, we could bring this thing to a whole nother level. We could kick it up a notch if you all jumped on board. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.